60 hertz. You're shopping for a monitor and one number decides the price. 60 hertz costs little, 144, double, 540 a fortune. Every box and ad tells the same story. That number means speed. It doesn't. It measures how long each image stays frozen on your screen. At 60 hertz, the screen draws a new picture 60 times per second. So every frame sits frozen for about 16.7 milliseconds. Your eyes keep moving while it sits, and your brain smears it into a blur trail. So the blur in those comparisons is real, but it isn't in the pixels, it's in the timing. Still, 60 hertz survives because it's perfect for video. Movies run at 24 frames per second, most shows at 30, and 60 repeats them evenly with zero stutter. The weakness only shows when you move the image yourself, scrolling, dragging, aiming, and it draws the least power on this list. If battery life matters, this setting respects it. But shorten the freeze and the blur shrinks. That trade is what every bigger number is selling. 75 hertz. The cheapest real upgrade in the monitor world. Each frame now holds for 13.3 milliseconds instead of 16.7, a small cut, but you notice it the first time you scroll text. It also feels quicker. The screen shows new information more often. Your cursor lands a few milliseconds sooner, and that somehow feels like the whole computer got faster. The honest part, nobody builds a 75 hertz panel for gamers. These are office monitors with a free speed boost, so the pixels are tuned for spreadsheets, not shooters. Some budget models add adaptive sync, which smooths out weaker graphics cards. Think of 75 hertz as oiling a squeaky door. Cheap, small, and you notice it every day. 120 hertz. This is where the upgrade stops being subtle. Each frame holds for just 8.3 milliseconds, half the freeze time of 60, and motion blur drops so visibly that most people spot it instantly. It's the number the industry quietly agreed on. PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X output up to 120 frames per second, and gaming laptops made it standard. Adaptive sync matters most in this tier. Instead of refreshing on a fixed timer, the screen waits for your graphics card and displays each frame the moment it's ready. No tearing, no stutter. Compared to 60 hertz, average input delay falls by roughly 10 milliseconds. That's the gap between fine and instant. The catch? Once your eyes learn 120, every 60 hertz screen suddenly looks broken and you can't unlearn it. 144 hertz. Gaming's default, for a boring, sensible reason, balance. Each frame lasts 6.9 milliseconds on screen, and a mid-range graphics card can actually keep up. Counter-Strike, Valorant, Apex Legends. Ordinary hardware pushes those well past 144 frames per second. This is where manufacturers start caring about pixel speed. The pixels must finish changing color in roughly 3 milliseconds, or the frame ends before the pixel does. And moving objects grow ghost trails. You'll find 144 at every resolution, 1080p on a budget, 1440p as the best balance, even 4K. Though 4K needs compression to fit through a DisplayPort 1.4 cable. One warning. Most 165 Hz monitors are 144 Hz panels running slightly faster, with a bigger number on the box. Nothing wrong with buying one. Just never pay extra for that number. 240 Hz. Quick question, what refresh rate are you watching this on? Drop it in the comments. And if spec sheets are starting to make sense, hit the like button. It genuinely helps. Now, the competitive tier. At 240 Hz, a frame lives for 4.16 milliseconds, and blur from eye tracking nearly vanishes. Counter-Strike 2, and Valorant are engineered to run at hundreds of frames per second, so hardware like this has something to show. But here's the honest math. A 240 Hz monitor is only worth it if your PC delivers 240 frames per second, every second. If it can't, you bought an 8-lane highway and you're riding a bicycle on it. That's why these screens stay at 1080p or 1440p. Resolution kept low, so frame rate stays high. Pixels here must switch in about 2 milliseconds, which is why slower VA panels vanish here and TN, fast IPS, and OLED take over. 360 Hz. Now, the numbers start racing past human biology. Each frame holds for 2.77 milliseconds, while your visual reaction time sits around 200 to 250 milliseconds. The monitor now updates roughly 80 times inside the window. It takes you to react once. Does it do anything? Yes, just not what the box implies. You don't react faster. Motion simply looks more continuous, like a flipbook with extra pages. The same story, smoother. The brutally honest catch. The input delay gain over 240 Hz is about 1 millisecond. Professional players whose salary depends on that millisecond will take it. For everyone else, this is where money stops buying a feeling. 480 Hz, 2.08 milliseconds per frame, and a genuine engineering problem. This many frames eat so much bandwidth that even DisplayPort 2.1 and HDMI 2.1 barely manage it, which is why nearly every 480 Hz monitor is locked to 1080p. The panels are old or high-end TN, because only those switch pixels in under a millisecond. OLED is the star. Each pixel makes its own light and shuts off almost instantly, so the dark smearing that ruined older screens isn't there. Who needs this? Esports arenas, broadcasters, and players paid to be 7 milliseconds better than you. 540 Hz, and then the ceiling, the monitor this list was climbing toward. In 2023, Asus shipped the ROG Swift Pro PG 248 QP. 540 Hz, 1080p, built on a TN panel chosen for one reason. It switches fast enough to survive a 1.85 millisecond frame. For comparison, a blink takes about 100 of those. At this speed, the monitor is no longer waiting for the game. It's waiting for you. Your graphics card, your mouse, your cable, your reflexes, everyone is now slower than the panel, which is the quiet truth behind all 8 numbers.